Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. So I know that I did a community post on here a few days ago, kind of letting you guys know that I will be going back home in a few days. So I will be going back to my regular filming setup. But in the meantime, I did want to film one last video while I'm here at my sister's house because it makes me anxious when I don't have anything to upload onto my booktube channel. Not that I'm feeling any pressure from you guys whatsoever. That is just me and my anxiety, and I want to put content out there. So this is a little bit belated, which is very, very unusual for me, but I am doing my October TBR, even though it is already October 4th. I usually try my best to film these TBR videos before the next month starts, but it is what it is. Let's just kind of jump into it. Basically, every October, I feel the need to read any spooky book and any like paranormal romance that is on my radar. I'm sure that a lot of you guys can relate to that. It's like as soon as October 1st hits, I am just in the mood for all things spooky. So the first couple of books that are on my radar for October are actually reverse harems, which that is a subgenre that I've been slowly but surely dipping my feet into. I've read a couple of them in the past and have really enjoyed them for the most part, but I am on the hunt for that one book or that one series that is like my favorite reverse harem. So the first series that is on my radar is the Madison Kate series by Tate James. I think this author and her books blew up on TikTok, if I'm not mistaken, and so I've just heard a lot of people talk about this series recently, and it sounds really interesting. I don't really know the plot. I definitely think that's going to be a theme for this video, that for a lot of these books I'm not really gonna know what they're about, because with spooky books in particular, I like to go into them as blind as possible. So as far as I know with this series though, it is about our main character, who I assume is named Madison Kate, and essentially the three men that are going to be a part of her harem, they did something that caused her to go to prison, I believe, and now she's out of prison, and so she hates their guts, and things go on from there. That sounds like the ultimate enemies to lovers story, right? So I finally got all of the audiobooks in from my Libby app. It took literally weeks of me waiting on a wait list because, like I said, these books have gone viral on TikTok, but I'm excited nonetheless. And then the other reverse harem that I'm so excited about is All the Queen's Men by Kay Lorraine. This one was put on my radar by Charles from Books on Stereo. I'm pretty sure I'm saying his channel name correctly. I'll definitely link him down in the description below. He is the king of audiobooks, and so when he mentioned that this reverse harem audiobook has a full cast of narrators, and he mentioned the names of the narrators, let me get that up for you. So we have Stella Hunter, Shane East, Jason Clark, Teddy Hamilton, Jacob Morgan, Wesley Shaban, and Kylie Stewart. So a lot of these narrators are some of my absolute favorite romance novel audiobook narrators, so I'm very excited about that. This definitely sounds like a paranormal slash fantasy reverse harem, and I really don't need to know more than that. If Charles recommends the audiobook, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. And I want to quickly mention that a lot of the books on this TBR are on Kindle Unlimited as well, if you are subscribed to that service. So next up we have 44 Chapters About Four Men by B.B. Easton. So this is the book that the show Sex Life on Netflix was adapted from, and I watched the entire first season of that show. That's all that's out right now on Netflix about a month or two ago, and I enjoyed it for the most part. I had some issues with it. I know I'm not the only one that feels that way about that show. It's definitely a show that's supposed to make you think, I guess, and I was really intrigued about the book that it was based off of. And from what I understand, this book is definitely more lighthearted, definitely more comedic. This is, I think it's kind of a memoir by B.B. Easton, and so our main character, she like writes this diary about the men in her past that she had some fun times with, and her husband discovers this diary, and so he starts making her fantasies come to life, essentially. And I'm excited to read it because I know that Jen from the Book Refuge has talked about this book. She did a whole video actually that I highly recommend watching. I'll link it either up in the cards or down in the description, where she compared the book and the TV series. And so that's where I'm getting my information in terms of the book being more lighthearted and fun. So I'm really, really excited. This is another book that I have been waiting for weeks and weeks to get from my Libby app, from my library. So I'm really excited to finally dive into it this month. Next up, we have Blue-Eyed Devil by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 2, and I believe it's just the Travis's series. It's a series of 4 contemporary women's fiction novels. I read Sugar Daddy, which was book 1 in this series last month. Absolutely adored that book. Oh my goodness, it's absolutely fantastic. And I've heard that this book is even better. So I also have this book on hold from my Libby app. And then let's see, next up we have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a book that has definitely been on my radar for quite some time. I think ever since before the book ever came out. And for some reason I just haven't read it. So it sounded like the perfect book to read in October. All I know is that it's a romance between a brujo, which is like a male witch or a warlock, I'm not really sure, and the ghost of somebody that he used to know or something. I don't really know. Once again, I like to go into these books as blind as possible, but I've heard nothing but great things about this book. I've heard that there's some great trans representation as well, and some witchy goodness, so of course that's gonna be great. Next we have Gothicana by Rue Nix. Again, I really don't know much about this book except that it's like a dark academia / gothic romance. It's like 500 pages. This is definitely a commitment of a book for sure. And what finally pushed me to put this on my TBR is that the Ravished by Romance book club, which is run by Jess from Peace Love Books and Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers, picked this book for their October book club pick. And so I'm excited to finally dive into it. I've been craving some gothic romances. If you guys have recommendations, definitely leave them down in the comments below. My go-to gothic romance recommendation is The Headmaster by Tiffany Rice. Highly, highly, highly recommend that book, and it's only like a 5-hour audiobook, so you will fly through it. Next up, I have Fallen by Mia Sheridan. I have been dying to read more from Mia Sheridan ever since I read Archer's Voice a few months ago, and I can tell you right now that it is one of my top 5 favorite romances that I've read so far this year. But this one is definitely quite a bit different. It's a paranormal romance. And I actually randomly heard about this one from the author herself. I think she posted about it on her Instagram. I haven't heard any booktubers talk about this one, but it has a really high rating on Goodreads, a 4.46. That's amazing for any book. But it sounds like it's kind of like a haunted house story. It says Scarlett Lattimore arrives at Lilith House, an abandoned mansion built in 1876. That later housed a reform school for troubled girls to start a new life with her 7-year-old daughter. But between the nearby town with the strange, disconcerting feel, the deputy sheriff who's equal parts intriguing and suspicious, and the discovery that their new home holds a dark and violent past, Scarlett soon begins to question her rash decisions. Yeah, this just sounds like something that's going to be right up my alley. You know, I was just saying that I'm looking for more gothic romances, and that's kind of what this is. This is kind of parts a typical haunted house horror story with a romance and with gothic elements to it, given that the house is its own character. So yeah, this sounds really cool, and it's kind of sad that I've heard nobody talk about this book because, like I said, it has a really high rating on Goodreads. Next up, this is a book that I just found out about today. This is Ghost Walk by Cassandra Gannon. I heard about this book from Lacey Book Lovers. I'm going to link the video that she did really recently where she did some paranormal romance recommendations, because there is a round of the paranormal romance readathon that is happening later this month. So she gave a lot of paranormal romance recommendations. So I'm going to link that probably down in the description, but maybe up in the cards. Who knows, you'll see. But this one sounded really intriguing because it's about our main character, Grace. I'm not going to go into her whole backstory because this synopsis is kind of lengthy. But then she meets this handsome, sarcastic, and really real-seeming ghost, Captain James Riordan, who was unjustly hanged for murder on July 4th, 1789. And it sounds like since then he's been trying to find some way to clear his name. And so I guess he's gonna meet our main character and things are gonna go on from there. That sounds really freaking cool. Then we have Don't Hex and Drive by Juliet Cross. I am so pumped about going into this book. So this is book 2 in her Stay a Spell series. I read Wolf Gone Wild a few months ago. One of my favorite romances that I've read this year. It's an absolutely fantastic paranormal romance. And I just love that this takes place in New Orleans. I just love the vibe of this series. And so I'm really excited to go into book 2. This is going to be about one of the other sisters that this whole series centers around. I know nothing about the plot other than that, and I really don't need to at this point. Juliet Cross is quickly becoming a new favorite author of mine. Then, let's see, I actually have a couple of books that I meant to read last month and it just didn't happen. Let's see, we have Caressed by Ice by Nalini Singh. This is book 3 in her Psy Changeling series, which this is a series that I'm not really sure how I feel about. You know, I gave the first 2 books 4 stars and I'm sure I'm gonna give this one 4 stars as well, but I can't say that it's like one of my favorite paranormal romance series out there. I do like the concept behind it because we have humans who are either Psy or they're changelings. The Psy are humans with like psychic abilities, and then the changelings are shifters. They can shift into different animals. And yeah, I just haven't been blown away by any of the books in this series so far, but I've heard that this one is a lot of people's absolute favorite. So I hope that I really love it. And then the other book I meant to get to last month was Lover Unbound by J.R. Ward. This is book 5 in her Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I don't have much to say about this one. I've just been kind of slowly making my way through this series. I think this is still an ongoing series if I'm not mistaken. I think there's at least like 20 books at this point, or like 18. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, I don't plan on reading all of them, but I do want to get through like the first like 8 or 10, because basically I'm trying to get to around, I think like book 8 is going to be the book that's about like my favorite character, whose name is John. We meet him in book 1, and we've been seeing his story slowly progress through the series, so I'm trying to get to his book in particular. But this is a really enjoyable vampire romance series, so yeah, good times. Next up is yet another paranormal romance. This is No Rest for the Wicked by Cressley Cole. This is book 2 in her The Immortals After Dark series. I've been very intrigued about this series, but for some reason I just haven't felt the need to dive into it until now. I have seen quite a few people talk about this series and say that maybe you should skip book 1 just because it's like very over the top. Like the hero in particular, he's just a very, very, very alpha hero. And I've heard that there's like questionable things going on in terms of consent, maybe? I don't know. So I've heard that it's okay to just start with book 2, and so that's what I'm gonna do. I am excited about starting this series though because it takes place in New Orleans. I am obsessed with paranormal series that take place in New Orleans because that's like the perfect setting for those types of stories. You know, I actually don't have many like straight up horror books on this TBR, surprisingly, but the one that I really do want to check out is Kill Creek. I think the author is Scott Thomas, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously you'll see over on the cover over here, but this one is a horror novel that I've been meaning to get to for quite some time because it centers around, I think, this group of authors who go to this cabin to like write together and you know, be more productive. And I think one by one they start getting murdered, or maybe something else scary starts happening. So that sounds really interesting, really good. Next up we have Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. I was finally pushed to putting this on my TBR. This is yet another book that's on Kindle Unlimited, by the way. Once again by Charles from Books on Stereo. He recently did a video, I think it was titled like Paranormal Romances You Have to Read. And this one in particular, he just raved about it so much, and he even said, you know, there's no audiobook for this book, so you know that he thinks a book is amazing if he's willing to physically read it. So that's definitely what really pushed me to finally take a chance on this. This is definitely very dark paranormal romance. I think it centers around a heroine who is like a sacrifice to a demon, and that demon shows up and falls in love with her. I think that's what this is about. So yeah, like that sounds really intriguing. I've heard really nothing but good things about this book because I know quite a few people that I follow have read this and really loved it. Sanguine? How do you pronounce that word? I don't know, but it's by Sierra Simone. I've been meaning to dive into Sierra Simone for a very long time. I actually own quite a few of her books on my Kindle. What is wrong with me? I don't know, because I've just heard so many people rave about her books. But anyways, I'm definitely going to dive into this novella. It's about a vampire and I believe a priest who's a vampire hunter, and it's an MM romance, and it sounds fantastic. So like obviously this is perfect for October. All right, so the last few books I have to talk about are physical books that I have with me. So the first two are the last two books in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson. I read the first book last month and absolutely devoured it and adored it. This is a YA thriller trilogy, and it does center around the same character for all three books. And so the second book in that series is Good Girl, Bad Blood, once again by Holly Jackson. And then the third and final book actually just came out, I want to say last week, and that is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. I love this cover, and it's so cool that the parts that are like tape are shiny. Like, how cool is that? But I'm just really excited to dive into the other two books in this series because, like I said, I absolutely loved book one. That was one of my absolute favorite reads of last month. And then the last book, last but certainly not least, book that I have on my October TBR is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Need I say more? Like, TJ Klune is one of my all-time, if not my all-time favorite author, and he recently came out with this book. I actually really don't know what this one's about, except that I believe he drew inspiration from A Christmas Carol. And if you tell me that, I'm gonna want to read it and I'm probably gonna love it. Like, I am just obsessed with any kind of Christmas Carol retelling or adaptation or reimagination or anything like that. And it's TJ Klune, so like, it's gonna be fantastic. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this October TBR. I hope that you enjoyed. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to discuss any of the books that I brought up in this video, or if you want to give me Halloween book recommendations. I'm always looking for more spooky books to read, and this was a very ambitious TBR. I may not get to all of these books, but if I don't get to them in this month, I'll get to them in November. It's totally fine. So I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!